The world of infrastructure is filled with awe-inspiring engineering marvels that shape our cities and connect our societies. While some structures adhere to normal designs, others break free from tradition and embrace unusual designs and concepts. So join me for today's video. I'm going to look through the top 15 most unusual types of infrastructure. Number 15. Vancouvers Helijet. Alright, generally speaking, chartering a helicopter will cost you hundreds if not thousands of dollars. However, Vancouvers Helijet is one of the most affordable options out there. Essentially an upgraded version of a traditional ferry service, it allows the public to go by helicopter from Vancouver to Vancouver Island. Far faster than driving to the ferry, it's got connections both at the airport and downtown, making it a great choice for those who are either busy and on the go or who are looking for a unique experience. Since they generally have 12 seats on board, ticket prices are as low as $110 for a one-way trip, making the Helijet a solid option. Number 14. Monkey bridges. Now, unfortunately, Vietnam doesn't have the means to create tons of modern bridges across rural areas. As a result, so-called monkey bridges have been made to get around this problem. They're handmade out of bamboo or wood. They often consist of just one large piece of bamboo or a singular tree trunk, usually without guardrails of any kind. This makes crossing these bridges a balancing act, which is fitting since monkey bridges got their name due to the fact that you need to hold a monkey-like posture in order to cross them. While they may seem a little sketchy, they are an economical alternative to creating thousands of expensive bridges in the swampy Mekong Delta. However, in order to increase their durability and safety, some newer versions of the bridges are now being made out of steel or concrete. Number 13. Wuppertal Suspension Railway. While most public transit takes the form of buses, streetcars, or subways, the Wuppertal Suspension Railway is a little different than most. Found in the city of Wuppertal, their transit system is a monorail that hangs to the track above it, making it look like it's floating over the streets below. Completed in 1903, it was way ahead of its time and is still considered to be very effective due to its extremely secure safety system. Because it's suspended, it also makes it impossible for anyone to jump onto the tracks, while its unique design makes it well loved by locals and tourists alike. And while some mistakes have been made, for example in 1950 an elephant was loaded onto the train and it fell right through it, landed in the river down below. Though the railway has run without any major hitches for about 120 years. Number 12. Wildlife crossings. Now, as you might expect, building massive highways is bad news for local animal populations. However, while they may be a tad destructive, some more humane engineers have decided to mitigate the effects of human impact by creating wildlife crossings. Now, these are essentially green forested pathways that allow animals to go across highways, and they take on two main forms. The first are bridges that go over a highway, generally filled with the trees, bushes, soils, and grasses of the surrounding area. They are a safe way for animals to cross. While there are several examples of these, Germany's Longcamp Highway Ecoduct is a particularly beautiful example. The second method is to simply put all the nature underneath the highway. An example of this happened in Florida State Route 46, where part of the highway was elevated to create a grassy underpass for animals to cross underneath it. Number 11. The Ishima Ohashi Bridge. On the surface, Ishima Ohashi Bridge looks like something designed at an amusement park. However, it's in fact a fully functional bridge with a terrifying vertical descent. Constructed in 2004 to connect the cities of Matsue and Sakai Minato across Japan's Nakaumi Lake, it's one of the tallest bridges around, as it's about 44 meters in height, while having a steep gradient of 5.1% on the Sakai Minato side and a 6.1% on the Matsue side. Now, while this may seem a little extreme, the steepness is critical because it allows ships to pass underneath it. That's because unlike most bridges, which must open up each side for ships to pass through, the Ishima Ohashi Bridge is tall enough for them to pass without disrupting traffic. As a result, this design is very commuter-friendly, although the only downside is that it can be difficult to drive up and down it. Number 10. Starlink. Now, in recent months, Elon Musk hasn't gotten the best rap. However, one project of his that has managed to get relatively positive press is Starlink. Operated under the guise of the rocket ship producer SpaceX, the basic idea behind it is to allow people in remote and rural locations to receive high-quality, low-latency internet at a reasonable price. This is achieved thanks to its 3,000 low Earth orbit satellites, which are operated in stark contrast to most other internet satellites, which are located in high orbit. Thanks to their tech and location, they offer more data, faster speeds, and fewer data limitations than most competitors. And best of all, they can be accessed for $110 a month with one-time hardware cost of $599. And while there have been some kinks in scaling and concerns that the satellites may pose a long-term danger due to their proximity to the Earth, the unique low-orbit network could easily revolutionize internet access in the short to medium term. Number 9. Musical roads. When you go for a drive, there's a pretty good chance that you crank the car radio up and listen to some tunes. And while this is the normal way to listen to music as you travel, there are some parts of the planet that have musical roads. Located in places as far apart as South Korea, the UAE, Hungary, and the US, they are truly a global phenomenon, although the place that lays claim to having the most musical roads is Japan. Home to about 30 of them, they play various tunes from Japanese culture and work thanks to a clever use of cuts and edges. You see, these roads have special grooves that create noises at various speeds, allowing cars to play music as they drive over them. And while this may seem like a touristy gimmick at first glance, they actually have several important uses. First of all, because these roads only play the song correctly if you drive over them at the set speed limit, they encourage drivers to travel at a safe and steady pace. They can also help you stay alert while driving, as the combination of the shaking caused by the grooves and the sound of the music helps you to stay awake even when on a long stretch of road. So, musical roads are far more practical than they may seem initially. Number 8. Floating roads. Norway is a beautiful country full of jaw-dropping fjords. However, this incredibly beautiful feature has a dark side. That's because while the massive inlets created by glaciers are pretty to look at, they're also extremely difficult to get across, with many often being several kilometers long. Now, this is a problem because in order to get across Norway's most efficient highway, a car needs to take a grand total of 7 ferry crossings, making many journeys extremely long and tedious. In order to fix this problem, the Norwegian government has put $47 billion into creating a series of super innovative road projects. Of these, there are 2 that really stand out. The first is a 27-kilometer long and 390-meter deep undersea tunnel known as Rogfast. This is set to be the world's longest and deepest undersea tunnel, and it would work by having what is essentially a concrete tube tethered to the sea floor using clasps, and to the water's surface using pontoons, creating a floating tunnel. This floating concept is also being used over another fjord. The idea with this piece of infrastructure is to create a 5-kilometer-long floating suspension bridge, which will be held up thanks to a series of long cables tied to either side of the fjord. However, the one downside is that while these projects are innovative, they're also very expensive, so it will likely be quite a while until they finally come into fruition. Number 7. Living root bridges. Now, when you cross a bridge, you can usually trust some mixture of steel, concrete, cement, or stone to keep you from falling off. However, in the northeast Indian state of Meghalaya, it's common for people to allow nature to do all of the bridge building. You see, Meghalaya is home to several different living root bridges. Now, in essence, these are simple suspension bridges that are made by linking together roots of the Ficus elastica, or rubber fig tree, through a process known as tree shaping. The methods of creation can vary wildly. After all, while some make use of tools such as wooden scaffolding or bamboo, others do the task completely by hand. However, the overarching goal is to have 2 or more trees' roots connect to create a bridge over a river or other natural obstacle. Now, the cool thing about these bridges is that as long as the trees remain healthy, the bridge will naturally thicken and strengthen over time. In fact, so long as humans are continuously pruning them, new roots can grow over time, making the bridge far sturdier than when it started. However, the unfortunate flip side is that when these bridges are abandoned, they can quickly grow wild, often making them far too unsafe to use. However, this leaves us with one question. What happens when a living root bridge is made well? Well, according to some sources, if properly maintained, a living root bridge is able to hold up to 50 people at once and last several hundred years. So in rural areas that only have foot traffic, there are few bridges that are as cool nor as sustainable as one made by the roots of the Ficus elastica. Number 6. Turbo train. Now, if you want to get between Toronto and Montreal, you can expect to sit on a train for between 5 to 6 hours, which is about as long as it takes to drive. However, what if it didn't have to be that way? Well, for about a period of 14 years, the route was home to Canada's one and only high-speed locomotive, the turbo train. Looking a lot like a jet plane, the turbo train was extremely quick, and it was able to make it from Toronto to Montreal in just under 4 hours. It was also a luxury experience, as the business class apparently had meals including filet mignon, veal cordon bleu, roast tenderloin of beef, and Cornish game hen. Yet this luxury experience would not go to plan. During the very first trip, things took a turn for the worse when the locomotive struck a meat van at a level crossing near Kingston, doing little to the train but pulverizing the van. Despite this, service would recommence, although this issue this time was the train was not very reliable. Oftentimes, brakes froze in the winter and the engine exhaust spat soot over the roofs, leading to a poor experience for those on board. It was also during this time that air travel between Toronto and Montreal became increasingly popular, lowering demand for the train route. On the flip side, despite its problems, the trains did have an 80 to 90% on-time rate, which is not horrible considering how many issues it had. Regardless, this solid on-time rate wasn't enough, as in 1982 the turbo train was retired, never again to be replaced by another high-speed train. Number 5. Solar roads. Alright, step aside solar panels. Soon we may have solar roads. While the concept may seem wild, there is a US company making large strides in turning these roads into a reality. You see, in many US cities, snow and ice is a problem in the winter. Usually expensive snowplows have to clear the snow and throw down salt. However, this issue could be solved by installing these solar roadways. The idea is that solar panels will be installed within glass roads. There are 2 major benefits to doing this. Firstly, since glass is renewable and relatively eco-friendly, it could be a green replacement for asphalt. After all, so long as you travel at speeds of less than 130 kph, they can safely be stopped on, making them perfect for side streets and more rural roads. However, beyond being green, solar roads also have an important practical use. You see, because they harness solar energy, this power can then be used to melt snow and ice in the winter and add extra energy to the power grid in summer. This does make them full of potential, and it's likely because of this that the U.S. Department of Defense has agreed to install 180 solar roadway panels at the Cold Regions Research and Engineering Lab in Hanover, New Hampshire. Now, while solar roads may be cool, I should note that they also have their fair share of problems. Beyond just being plain expensive, one major issue is that these roads produce very little energy because they're often under the shade of cars and trees. As a result, an argument has been made that these materials to build solar roads are better used on rooftops, which receive more constant supply of sunlight. There are also some other logistical problems. For example, if they happen to not melt all their snow during a heavy storm, the fact that they're made of glass would make them super difficult and likely dangerous to plow. So, while solar roads are kinda cool, there's a very real chance that they won't pick up all that much momentum. Number 4. Electric charging roads. For over 100 years, most people have relied on gas to power their cars, and while the last couple of decades have brought along electric cars, there's been one big problem. Electric cars are less reliable. After all, if you lose a charge in the middle of nowhere, you're kinda screwed. However, soon, this may no longer be a concern. And this is because some scientists have been able to develop sets of electric charging roads. The idea is that when a car drives on top of them, the road charges their car, and generally uses tech such as a license plate picture to later collect payment. The technology first got its wings in 2018, when Sweden unveiled E-Road Arlanda. This is the world's first electrified road. It covers a 2-kilometer stretch of pavement and uses a pair of electrical rails to transfer energy from the road to an EV above it via a mechanical arm. While this was kinda cool, the whole mechanical arm thing was a bit of an issue. After all, if the arm didn't make contact with the car, the whole thing wouldn't work. Worst of all, at a cost of $600,000 per kilometer, building this type of road was far from cheap. Thankfully, the first of these 2 issues has since been solved. That's because a pilot project in Italy was able to create a 1-kilometer test track that uses inductive charging technology. This is massive because inductive charging will charge a car without the use of a mechanical arm. Instead, a car simply has to drive over the road to pick up a charge. And while this was apparently also quite expensive, it's far easier to use than any technology before it. But perhaps coolest of all, there is a chance that the United States could start implementing these roads nationwide sooner rather than later. This is because the Indiana Department of Transportation and Purdue University have created a very similar road that uses a magnetic field to charge a vehicle. However, at a cost of $1.1 million to $2.8 million per kilometer, they would need some serious government funding to launch the project on a large scale. And while the state of Indiana has become increasingly hostile towards the technology, there's always a chance that the federal government may intervene. Number 3. Smart highways. When you drive onto the highway during rush hour, chances are that your experience is far from pleasant. Stuck in a line of cars, there's nothing you can do but idle and wait. However, smart highways could revolutionize the way we do rush hour. The whole concept of a smart highway is that it integrates technology to improve your driving experience. And while the idea has been floated around across the world, it's China that's taking the first leap forward in implementing it. That's because while the country is home to over 1,000 kilometers of highway that use smart features to some extent, the best so far has been the so-called total factor highway between Chengdu and Yibin. Equipped with a smart pillar every 800 meters, they are essentially Wi-Fi-powered supercomputers that use radar and cameras to collect road information. This allows drivers to be informed by an app about traffic or accident problems ahead of them, and upon receiving this info, they are given alternative routes. The information can also be used to quickly send police and other emergency vehicles to accident locations, helping to speed up response times. Smart highway technology may also take on different forms. For example, on smaller highways, smart lights may be one day widespread. In essence, these traffic lights use a variety of tech to sense how many cars are on the road. This allows them to determine when to change the light from red to green, so the most cars possible can pass, making things more efficient for everyone. These highways could also be used to make self-driving cars far safer. After all, despite supposedly being smart enough to act autonomously, smart driving cars have had more than their fair share of accidents. To help combat this, smart highways would be able to feed these cars data about traffic, weather, and accidents in real time, allowing them to make better decisions. However, while all this may sound cool, it comes with a big question mark. They also collect a ton of user data, and this could be used to do everything from hammering people for minor speeding violations to sending them super targeted and predatory advertisements. Therefore, only time will tell whether these highways will actually become widespread. Number 2. Self-repairing roads. Few things are worse than driving over a pothole, and while it normally takes a lot of time and resources to fill them up, there's now a solution that will speed things up. Known as self-paving roads, they work exactly as advertised, and there are 2 types currently in development. The first is a solution that doesn't require changing up the road all that much. You see, it turns out that road asphalt is a naturally self-healing material. After all, if given enough time to rest, it can expand slightly in order to seal any microcracks that naturally develop from traffic. Yet this takes a super long time, and so in order to amplify that process, some scientists have begun to add small steel fibers into the asphalt mix. When these steel fibers are in the asphalt, they can be driven over with an induction machine. After 2 or 3 hours, the asphalt heats up to an almost liquid state, allowing it to be spread around to completely cover the pothole. Now, it should be noted that in terms of upfront cost, this asphalt is about 25% more expensive than the regular stuff. However, because it's so easy to maintain, a study based in the Netherlands found that it would save the country over 90 million euros a year if implemented across all of their roadways, as it would increase the lifespan of their roads from about 20 to 40 years to a whopping 80 years. Best of all, the use of steel fibers would open up many other opportunities, as it's believed they could help facilitate the wireless driving of electric vehicles or the heating of asphalt to melt ice and snow in the winter. However, the Netherlands' self-healing roads are one-upped by some even newer technology. While still in the research phase, scientists at the University of Bath, Cardiff University, and the University of Cambridge teamed up to create a concrete blend that's full of bacteria hidden in tiny capsules. This is important because this bacteria facilitates the process of mineralization. In other words, the bones heal themselves. The scientists found that when these bacteria were in the concrete was able to heal itself when cracked without any human interference. It is armed with this technique that they believe can create a road asphalt that heals itself in a similar manner. We'll just have to wait and see. Number 1. Maglev Lines. When you get on a high-speed train, you can usually enjoy a nice, quick, smooth ride between 2 cities. However, Maglev Lines are set to completely change the game. You see, unlike most types of trains, they generally go at speeds of around 500 kilometers per hour. For reference, that's about 50% faster than regular high-speed trains, which generally travel between 300 and 350 kilometers an hour. This is possible thanks to their propelling force, magnets. You see, unlike most trains that power themselves along tracks, Maglev Lines have two sets of magnets, with one set repelling and pushing the train up and off the track, while the other moves the elevated train forward. This takes advantage of the lack of surface friction to allow a train to move at incredibly fast speeds while still being remarkably quiet and smooth. Now, the tech has been a long time coming. After all, there were lines that were supposed to be installed in the 70s and 80s across North America, Europe, and Asia, although a lack of funding has meant that there are currently only 3 countries with Maglev lines. While South Korea and Japan only have low-speed lines, a line in Shanghai, China is considered to be the world's only high-speed Maglev line, making the tech rather difficult to come across. While this may be disappointing, things are looking up for the Maglev lines. That's because as countries start to shift to having net zero carbon emissions, Maglev lines have been seen as a great green energy solution as they produce zero carbon emissions and are all in all the fastest train technology in the world. And while Maglev line plans have been drafted around the world, it's Japan, of course, that has the most high-profile line under construction, set to connect Tokyo to Nagoya by 2027 and Nagoya to Osaka by 2037. It will travel at speeds of up to 500 kilometers an hour, likely making it the fastest passenger train in the world. Due to its speed, it's estimated that it will be able to make the trip between Tokyo and Nagoya in less than an hour, which is impressive given that it takes about an hour and 40 minutes right now. However, about 86% of the Tokyo-Nagoya line will be underground. This means that it will require a lot of tunnels, and this has become a problem because there are worries that Shizuoka Prefecture's Oya River may leak into the train's tunnel, causing serious mechanical problems and lowering the river's water levels. In response, the Central Japan Railway Company has expressed concern that the targeted 2027 completion date is a bit unrealistic, and as a result, the project may be delayed for a few years. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Watch our binge-watching playlist if you'd like to watch all of our most popular top 15 videos. Grab a drink, grab a snack, and get ready to binge. The Top 5 show has launched channel memberships. Thank you to our channel members.